President Obama. He left Prague early this morning after signing that landmark nuclear arms reduction treaty, and he's already facing some pretty taunting criticism from Sarah Palin and some questions about the treaty from Senator John McCain and other senators. So it is going to be a big fight ahead in the Senate, but the president is confident that the treaty will eventually get ratified, and that's where we began our interview. So you have no doubt you're going to get the 8 Republicans you need to ratify this treaty?
Well, listen, I've now been in Washington for long enough that for me to say I have no doubt about how the Senate operates would be foolish. I feel confident that leaders like Dick Lugar, who actually was somebody I worked very closely with when I was in the Senate on issues of arms control, when they have had the opportunity to fully evaluate this treaty, will come to the conclusion that this is in the best interest of the United States. What I will also say to those in the Senate who have questions is that this is absolutely vital for us to deal with the broader issues of nuclear proliferation.
Sarah Palin, taking aim at your decision to restrict use of nuclear weapons, your pledge not to strike nations, non-nuclear nations, who abide by the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Here's what she said. She said, it's unbelievable. No other administration would do it. And then she likened it to kids on a playground.
You know, that's kind of like getting out there on the playground, a bunch of kids ready to fight, and one of the kids saying, go ahead, punch me in the face, and I'm not going to retaliate.
Your response?
I really have no response to that. Last I checked, Sarah Palin's not much of an expert on nuclear issues.
So no, but the strain of criticism has been out there among other Republicans as well. They think you're restricting use of nuclear weapons too much.
And what I would say to them is that if the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are comfortable with it, I'm probably going to take my advice from them and not from Sarah Palin.
But not concerned about her criticism?
No.
Let's talk about President Medvedev. I'm going to see him tomorrow. You've spoken with him about 14 times negotiating this treaty. What did you learn about him?
You know, he's a very deliberate, very methodical, very honest partner in negotiations, which I find very useful. He's somebody who says, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do.
Are you convinced he's the man in charge in Russia?
You know, I will tell you, he has been able to consistently follow through on the commitments that he's made. You know, I think there's no doubt that he takes the counsel of Putin very seriously. I think that there's no doubt that you know, Russia is a big, complicated country, just like the United States is, and that there are all sorts of different voices coming at him at any given time that he's got to take into account.
And it sounds like you may be now on the same page in dealing with Iran. Mm-hmm. Are you convinced that Russia and President Medvedev take this as seriously and feel the same urgency that you do?
I am convinced that what you heard today would have been unimaginable a year ago.
We are working together at the United Nations Security Council to pass strong sanctions on Iran.
For me to lay out clearly our approach to sanctions, and to have then a Russian president next to me say, there's nothing I heard that I could disagree with.
But so far, 3 rounds of UN sanctions haven't worked. What will be different this time?
Well, I don't think you have seen the degree of international unity that you've seen in this effort. And I think you're seeing the results of that bear fruit today.
So far, the Iranian officials are calling the sanctions a joke. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that. And President Ahmadinejad took after you personally. He's basically calling you a callow cowboy. The quote was, inexperienced amateur, and he wants you to wait until your sweat dries and you get some experience. What do you make of that?
Well, let's see, George. So far, you've quoted Sarah Palin
and President Ahmadinejad. You have to deal with him.
You're trying to get a rise out of me.
And it's not going to work?
No, it's not. I mean, look, the guy's known for saying some pretty unconstructive stuff. How's that? And offensive stuff. So I don't take that seriously. What I do take seriously is the fact that if we are consistent and steady in applying international pressure, that over time, Iran, which is not a stupid regime, which is very attentive and watching what's happening in the international community, we'll start making a different set of cost-benefit analyses about whether or not pursuing nuclear weapons makes sense for them.
Let me ask you about Afghanistan. There's been something of a war of words between your administration and President Karzai recently, and your press secretary, Robert Gibbs, refused to call him an ally the other day. And I think a lot of Americans wonder, if he's not an ally, why are we putting American lives on the line?
Well, first of all, the reason we're putting American lives on the line is because 3,000 Americans were killed by an attack that was launched from Afghanistan. And those people are still out there, still plotting to kill Americans. That means that we are going after al-Qaeda to dismantle and destroy them. Now, President Karzai, I think, is going to be a critical partner in this effort, because if we are just succeeding on the military side but not succeeding on the civilian side, then you're going to continue to have instability in the region.
Is he a partner now?
Well, I think he has been a partner, but I think that he has his own domestic politics that he has to deal with. And I think the fact is that real progress has been made, but this is a country that went through 30 years of war. And so part of President Karzai's challenge is he's got to bring his country along into a 21st century in which it is functioning and effective.
But are you convinced he's committed to doing that?
I think he is committed to doing that. That doesn't mean that it's easy. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be times where he and I disagree in terms of how things should proceed and how rapidly things should proceed.